Story. Chapter 1. Foundations of Faith. Roger Everett gripped the wooden cross hanging from his neck as he stood outside room 405 of St. Mary's Medical Center. Behind the door, a family waited to hear their mother's final words. It was moments like these that defined his role as hospital chaplain, not just offering prayers, but being the pillar of strength for others in their weakest moments. "They're ready for you, Mr. Everett," the nurse whispered, touching his arm gently. Roger nodded, squaring his shoulders before entering. The family huddled around the bed, their faces etched with grief. He'd done this hundreds of times, yet each moment remained uniquely sacred. As he began the prayer, his deep voice resonated with authority and compassion. "Our Father, who art in heaven." After the service, Dr. Herman Miller caught up with him in the hallway. The head of nephrology's expensive watch glinted under the fluorescent lights as he clasped Roger's shoulder. "Powerful words today, Roger. You have a gift for bringing peace to these moments." "Thank you, Herman. Just doing what needs to be done. Speaking of which, how's Katrina? She's been putting in extra hours lately." Roger's jaw tightened imperceptibly. His wife's increasing absences hadn't gone unnoticed. "She's dedicated to her patients. You know how she is." "That she is," Miller replied, his eyes holding something Roger couldn't quite read. "You two are what makes this place special. The perfect balance of spiritual and physical healing." Before Roger could respond, Regina Downey's sharp click of heels announced her approach. The new board member's presence sent a visible ripple of tension through Dr. Miller's shoulders. "Dr. Miller, I need to discuss the latest transplant statistics with you," Regina stated, her voice carrying the weight of authority. "They're not aligning with our reported success rates." "Of course, Ms. Downey. If you'll excuse us, Roger." Roger watched them walk away, noting how Miller's normally confident stride seemed hesitant under Regina's scrutiny. He filed the observation away, a habit formed from years of reading people's pain and fears. That evening, Roger returned home to find his brother Dale sprawled on their living room couch, surrounded by empty job search websites on his laptop. Dale's presence was yet another strain on their household, but blood was blood. "Any luck today?" Roger asked, loosening his collar. "3 rejections and 2 will call you back," Dale muttered, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "Listen, Rog, I appreciate you letting me crash here, but Katrina?" "What about Katrina?" "She's been... I don't know, man. Something's off. Earlier today, she got this call and went straight outside to take it. When I went to grab the mail, I heard her say something about meeting later." Roger poured himself a glass of water, his grip firm on the glass. "She's a nurse, Dale. She gets calls. At 9 p.m.? And since when do nurses need to whisper?" The front door opened before Roger could respond. Katrina breezed in, her scrubs wrinkled from a long shift. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy bun, but her cheeks held a flush that didn't match someone ending a 12-hour workday. "Sorry I'm late," she said, avoiding Roger's eyes. "Mrs. Henderson's dialysis had complications. Dr. Miller mentioned you've been putting in extra hours," Roger replied, watching her carefully. Katrina's hand paused on her back. "Did he? Well, you know how short-staffed we are." "Dale, you left your dishes in the sink again." "Don't change the subject, Kat," Dale started, but Roger silenced him with a look. "I'm too tired to argue," Katrina sighed. "I'm taking a shower and going to bed." Later that night, Roger lay awake, listening to Katrina's even breathing beside him. The distance between them in their bed felt like miles. He remembered their early days at St. Mary's, her laugh echoing through the halls, the stolen moments in the chapel when she'd bring him coffee between rounds, the way her eyes used to light up when he entered her ward. The next morning, Roger was counseling a terminal patient when Nurse Audrey Shea knocked on his office door. "Mr. Everett? Sorry to interrupt, but there's a Regina Downey asking to see you." Regina sat ramrod straight in his office chair minutes later, her gray suit pristine. "Mr. Everett, I'll be direct. I'm conducting a review of all departments, including their intersectional relationships. Your position as chaplain gives you a unique perspective. What exactly are you looking for, Ms. Downey?" "Irregularities. Patterns. Things that don't quite add up." She paused, studying him. Have you noticed anything unusual in the nephrology department lately? Roger thought of Miller's nervous behavior, Katrina's late nights, the whispered calls. Nothing specific comes to mind, but I'll certainly keep you informed if I do. Please do. And Mr. Everett? Regina stood, smoothing her skirt. Sometimes the biggest deceptions happen right under our noses. It's the people closest to us who can blind us to the truth. The words followed Roger through his afternoon rounds. He passed the nephrology department and saw Katrina in deep conversation with Miller, their heads bent close together over a chart. As if sensing his presence, Miller straightened abruptly, his hand dropping from where it had rested on Katrina's shoulder. That evening, Dale caught Roger in the garage, ostensibly helping him organize old boxes. You need to hear this, Rog, Dale said, his voice low. I saw Katrina at the coffee shop on 5th today. She wasn't alone. Hospital staff take coffee breaks, Dale. Not with someone who looks at them like that guy was looking at her. And hospital staff don't hold hands under the table. Roger's hands stilled on the box he was holding. You're sure about this? I took pictures. Dale pulled out his phone. I'm not trying to stir up trouble, but after what happened with Sandra, he trailed off, remembering his own ex-wife's betrayal. Delete them, Roger commanded, his voice hard. I'll handle this my way. The next few weeks brought subtle changes. Roger started keeping a detailed log of Katrina's schedule discrepancies. He noticed how she always volunteered for certain shifts, how her phone was perpetually face down, how she changed her password on their shared laptop. The pieces were there, waiting to be assembled into a picture he wasn't sure he was ready to see. But Roger Everett hadn't become the Rock of St. Mary's by shying away from hard truths. As he counseled a young widow one morning, her grief raw and real, he made a silent vow. If there was betrayal in his house, there would be consequences. His position might be grounded in forgiveness, but his heart belonged to justice. Chapter 2. The Weight of Truth. The autumn air carried a bite when Jeff Campos first appeared in their lives. Katrina introduced him as a long-lost cousin, someone she'd reconnected with through family research. Roger remembered the moment clearly, Jeff standing in their kitchen, his designer watch at odds with his casual attire, offering a bottle of expensive wine. Family is everything, Jeff had said, his smile practiced and perfect. When Katrina found me, it was like discovering a missing piece. 6 months later, that missing piece had become a fixture in their lives. Jeff's diagnosis of end-stage renal disease came as a shock, though Dale muttered that the timing seemed convenient. I can get tested, Katrina announced over dinner, reaching for Jeff's hand. We're family, after all. Roger watched the interaction, noting how their fingers lingered together a moment too long. That's a major decision, Katrina. Being a living donor isn't something to rush into. I've seen enough transplant cases to know what I'm offering, she snapped. Unless you're suggesting I don't understand my own profession? I think what Roger means, Dale interjected, is that we should explore all options. Have they checked the donor registry? Jeff shifted in his chair. My condition is complicated. Dr. Miller believes a living donor is my best chance. Of course Herman's involved, Roger muttered. He's the head of nephrology, Roger. Who else would handle my case? The fundraiser came next. Roger threw himself into the organization, partly out of duty, partly to keep a closer eye on the situation. Nurse Audrey Shea volunteered to help, her quiet efficiency masking keen observation. Mr. Everett? Audrey caught him after a planning meeting. There's something you should know about the donor paperwork. What is it, Audrey? She glanced around the empty conference room. Some of the dates don't match. I was filing the initial screening results and the timestamps. They're from before Jeff supposedly reconnected with Mrs. Everett. Roger's face remained impassive. Are you suggesting something? I'm just saying maybe we should look closer at. Audrey. Katrina's voice cut through the air. I need your help with a patient. Later that week, Constance Lowe, the hospital's financial coordinator, brought her own concerns to Roger's attention. These insurance forms, she said, spreading papers across his desk. The policy dates are inconsistent with standard coverage periods. And the provider. I've never seen them work with high-risk transplant cases before. Have you mentioned this to anyone else? I tried talking to Dr. Miller. He said he'd handle it, but then Regina Downey started asking questions about our transplant success rates, and suddenly everyone's walking on eggshells. Roger leaned back in his chair, fingering his chaplain's collar. Keep this between us for now, Constance. But I'd appreciate copies of anything else unusual you find. The fundraiser gained momentum. Local businesses donated, hospital staff contributed, and Roger dipped into their savings to show his support. All while Dale's camera captured moments that didn't quite fit the cousin narrative. Jeff's hand on Katrina's lower back when they thought no one was watching. Their heads close together in the hospital parking lot. Hushed phone calls that ended abruptly when others approached. Dr. Walter Armstrong scheduled the surgery for early spring. The transplant surgeon's reputation was impeccable, which made his request for a meeting with Roger all the more concerning. Mr. Everett, Armstrong said, hospital counsel Martin Keith sitting quietly beside him. There's been a development. Roger noted the careful choice of words. Go on. Standard preoperative screening revealed that your wife is 12 weeks pregnant. Armstrong's eyes held a mix of professional concern and personal discomfort. Obviously, we cannot proceed with the donation. The words hit Roger like physical blows. 12 weeks. 3 months. Their own intimate life had dwindled to nothing over the past year. Katrina always too tired, too busy, too distant. I see, Roger said, his voice steady despite the roaring in his ears. And the father? Martin Keith cleared his throat. Mr. Everett, given the circumstances, the hospital has concerns about potential ethical violations in the transplant screening process. If you're willing to assist with our investigation. Investigation? Roger's laugh held no humor. Oh, I'll assist. But first, I need to make a call. Bradley Douglas, Roger's college friend turned private investigator, answered on the first ring. Roger? It's been a while. Brad, I need a DNA test. Discreet, but legally admissible. How quickly can you make that happen? For you? Give me 48 hours. What are we looking at? A miracle pregnancy and a convenient cousin. I need to know if they're connected. The next day, Roger maintained his routine. He counseled patients, attended meetings, and nodded politely when Dr. Miller expressed concern about the transplant delay. All while Bradley's team gathered samples and ran tests, while Dale's photos found their way to hospital administration, while Audrey Shea compiled her documentation of suspicious interactions. The truth, when it arrived, was both devastating and validating. Jeff wasn't family. He was a fraud who had orchestrated an elaborate scheme with Katrina's willing participation. The pregnancy was just the final proof of a betrayal that had been unfolding for months. Nurse Audrey Shea's evidence painted a damning picture. Security camera footage, witness statements, and documented encounters filled a file that grew thicker by the day. The parking garage meetings, the supply closet rendezvous, the coordinated break schedules, all meticulously recorded by a nurse who believed in accountability. They were planning to use the surgery as cover, Audrey explained, her voice trembling with barely contained anger. Once she was recovered, they were going to take the fundraiser money and disappear. Dr. Miller was helping them falsify the medical records to make it all look legitimate. Roger sat in his office, the evidence spread before him, his chaplain's collar feeling like a noose. The man who had counseled countless others through crisis now faced his own test of faith. But as he stared at the proof of his wife's betrayal, something shifted inside him. The compassionate chaplain receded, replaced by something harder, colder, more calculating. Thank you, Audrey, he said, his voice carrying a new edge that made her step back. I think it's time we had a chat with Regina Downey about the future of St. Mary's transplant program. The weight of truth settled around him like armor, and Roger Everett began to plan. They had played him for a fool, used his faith against him, corrupted the very principles he had devoted his life to upholding. Now they would learn that betraying a man of faith didn't mean betraying a weak man. His phone buzzed with a text from Dale. Got more photos. Meeting tonight behind the hospital. Miller's there too. Roger's reply was simple. Send them to Bradley. It's time to begin. Chapter 3. Shattered Sanctity. The DNA test results arrived in a plain manila envelope on Roger's desk. Bradley Douglas hand-delivered it, his face grim. You'll want to sit down for this, Roger, Bradley said, closing the office door. It's worse than we thought. Roger took the envelope with steady hands. Tell me, Jeff isn't just not her cousin. He's got a history. Multiple identities. Multiple states. The DNA confirms he's the father of Katrina's baby, but that's just the beginning. Roger read through the report, each page revealing new layers of deception. You found matching samples? From her coffee cup and his cigarette butt. Dale's surveillance gave us the opportunity. There's no doubt, Roger. They've been planning this for months. A knock interrupted them. Nurse Audrey Shea entered, clutching a thick folder to her chest. Her face was pale, but her voice remained professional. Mr. Everett, I have the documentation you requested. She laid out a series of photographs, time-stamped security footage stills, and handwritten notes. I've been tracking their movements since I first noticed something was wrong. Roger spread the evidence across his desk. Tell me everything, Audrey. Don't leave out any details. It started small, extended breaks taken at the same time, hushed conversations that stopped when anyone approached. Then I noticed them meeting in the parking garage. Audrey pulled out a series of photographs. Level B2, always in the same corner. They thought the cameras didn't work there, but they did. Maintenance fixed them last month. Nobody knew except security. She hesitated. There's more. I overheard them discussing the fundraiser money. They have an account set up. They were planning to transfer everything after the surgery. Bradley whistled low. Classic con setup. Use the medical crisis to gather sympathy, collect donations, then disappear before anyone realizes what happened. Dr. Miller's involvement? Roger asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Audrey pulled out another set of documents. He falsified compatibility records, backdated consultations, created a fake medical history for Jeff. He was going to certify Katrina as a match regardless of actual compatibility. The pregnancy complicated their timeline, Bradley added. They needed to move faster than planned. Roger stood, walking to his office window. The hospital grounds spread out below, patients and staff going about their daily routines, unaware of the corruption festering within these sacred walls. Mr. Everett? Audrey's voice was hesitant. There's something else. I found evidence of medication diversions. Small amounts, but consistent. Prescription painkillers signed out to phantom patients. For Jeff? Yes. His supposed condition required specific medications. Dr. Miller authorized everything. Dale arrived as they were organizing the evidence, his laptop under his arm. You need to see this, Rog. He pulled up a series of photos showing Katrina, Jeff, and Dr. Miller in an intense discussion behind the hospital. Taken last night. Watch their body language. Miller's nervous, keeps looking over his shoulder. Roger studied the images. His wife's face was animated, her hand on Jeff's arm as she argued with Miller. The doctor's usual confidence was absent, replaced by visible anxiety. Regina Downey's investigation has him spooked, Audrey explained. She's been asking questions about transplant success rates, donor screening protocols. Speaking of protocols, Bradley interjected. I did some digging into Jeff's background. He pulled similar schemes in 3 other states. Different names, different stories, but same basic con. He finds someone on the inside, builds a relationship, then exploits medical fundraising systems. Roger's hand clenched around his cross. And the nurse in Arizona? Still missing. Local police want to question him, but they can't locate him. He's good at disappearing. Not this time, Roger stated, his voice hard. This time he picked the wrong mark. Dale closed his laptop. What's the play, brother? First, we document everything. Every meeting, every call, every inconsistency in the medical records. Roger began organizing the evidence into separate files. Bradley, I want detailed background checks on both Jeff and Miller. Audrey, keep tracking the medication diversions. We'll need a paper trail for the medical board. And Katrina? Dale asked quietly. Roger's face hardened. Let her think she's still in control. She believes I'm a fool who'll accept any explanation she offers. That works in our favor. Audrey hesitated at the door. Mr. Everett, I'm sorry. I should have come forward sooner. You did the right thing, Audrey. Now we all will. After they left, Roger sat alone in his office, surrounded by proof of his wife's betrayal. The man who had counseled countless souls through their darkest moments now faced his own crisis of faith. But faith, he realized, wasn't about blind acceptance. Sometimes faith required action, demanded justice. His phone buzzed. A message from Katrina. Working late again. Don't wait up. Roger texted back a simple okay, knowing she was meeting Jeff. Thanks to Dale's surveillance, he knew their entire routine. His wife thought she was orchestrating a clever deception. She didn't realize she was merely playing her part in a different script now. The cross around his neck felt heavier as he gathered the evidence files. Tomorrow, he would begin dismantling their careful plans. For now, he had preparations to make, allies to coordinate, and a reckoning to arrange. Bradley, he spoke into his phone. Schedule that meeting with Regina Downey. It's time she saw exactly what's been happening in her hospital. The sun set behind St. Mary's Medical Center, its fading light casting shadows through the chapel windows. Roger stood at the altar where he had once pledged his life to service and truth. The truth had come at a higher price than he'd expected, but he would pay it gladly. His wife, her lover, and their conspirator would learn that betraying a man of faith meant betraying a man of principle. And principles, unlike forgiveness, were absolute. Chapter 4. The Breaking Point. Roger Everett placed his chaplain's collar on the desk of St. Mary's Medical Center's HR director. I'm resigning from my position, he stated, his voice carrying no trace of the turmoil beneath. But Mr. Everett, the director protested, you're invaluable to our spiritual care department. Perhaps a leave of absence instead? No. Roger's response cut through the air. I've arranged for Father Matthews to handle my duties. I'm accepting a position in hospital administration. The news spread through St. Mary's like wildfire. By afternoon, Katie Ward, the hospital's risk manager, cornered him in the cafeteria. Her own battle scars from betrayal showed in the way she carried herself. Straight-backed, vigilant, unwavering. Administration? She studied him over her coffee. That's quite a change, Roger. Change is necessary sometimes, Katie. I recognize that look in your eyes. She leaned forward. I wore it myself after David's affair. Be careful. Revenge might feel righteous, but it can consume you. Roger met her gaze. I'm not seeking revenge, Katie. I'm seeking justice. There's a difference. Revenge is emotional. Justice is systematic. He stood, straightening his tie. And the system at St. Mary's needs correction. Regina Downey found him later that day, her heels announcing her arrival before she appeared in his new office doorway. I heard about your career change. How convenient. I've been looking for someone with intimate knowledge of hospital operations. Have you now? Roger gestured to the chair across from his desk. The nephrology department's numbers don't add up. Regina pulled out a tablet. Success rates inflated, donor matches statistically improbable. Dr. Miller's been careless. Careless enough to warrant investigation? With the right evidence. She studied him. Your wife works in that department, doesn't she? Worked, Roger corrected. She'll be taking an extended leave soon. Pregnancy complications. Regina's eyebrows rose slightly. How unfortunate. I assume you'll want to be involved in our internal audit. I believe I could offer valuable insight. Dale arrived at Roger's house that evening, his laptop tucked under his arm. Got access to the hospital's electronic records system, he announced. Legally, through IT. They're desperate for help with their security upgrades. Show me. Dale pulled up several files. Miller's been sloppy. Multiple instances of backdated records, inconsistent patient histories. He trusted the system's complexity to hide his tracks. Can you document everything? Already started. But Roger. Dale hesitated. Katrina's still living here. She's going to notice something's wrong. Let her. Roger's voice held steel. She'll see exactly what I want her to see. The next morning, Roger encountered Dr. Miller in the hospital corridor. The doctor's usual confidence faltered at the sight of Roger's new administrative badge. Quite a career change, Miller commented, trying to maintain his composure. Life is full of surprises, isn't it, Herman? Roger's smile didn't touch his eyes. Speaking of which, I'll need to review your department's records. Board compliance, you understand? Miller's face paled slightly. Of course. My office is always open to you. Oh, I won't need your office. Regina Downey has granted me full database access. We'll be conducting a thorough review of all transplant cases from the past 5 years. As Miller hurried away, Katie Ward approached. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Enjoying what? Watching them squirm. Miller practically ran to the elevator. Roger adjusted his cufflinks. Fear has a way of revealing truth. Katie, when people are afraid, they make mistakes. And Katrina? My wife believes she's still in control of the situation. That delusion will be her downfall. That evening, Roger reviewed the files Dale had gathered. Each document added another piece to the puzzle of corruption. Miller hadn't just helped Katrina and Jeff. He'd been manipulating records for years, building a false success rate that kept the hospital's transplant program in the spotlight. Regina Downey called late that night. Your brother's findings are impressive. The board will want a full presentation. Not yet, Roger replied. Let them feel secure for now. Cornered rats bite harder. Speaking from experience? Speaking from observation. I've spent years counseling people through crisis, Regina. I know how desperation works. The next day, Roger began his systematic dismantling of the nephrology department's facade. He started with small inquiries, routine paperwork reviews, standard compliance checks. Nothing that would raise immediate alarms, but enough to make Miller and his conspirators nervous. Katrina noticed the change in him. She watched him getting dressed in their bedroom, her hand resting on her growing belly. You're different lately, she observed. The administrative role. People change, Katrina. Isn't that what you always said? Her eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing at all. He straightened his tie. How's Jeff handling the transplant delay? He's managing. The dialysis helps. Interesting. I wasn't aware he'd started dialysis. Which center? Katrina's hesitation was brief but noticeable. I don't keep track of all the details. No? As his donor and cousin, I'd think you'd want to stay informed. He left her standing there, her face a mask of growing uncertainty. The game had begun, and Roger intended to play it through to its brutal end. Chapter 5. The Web Titans. Roger's first weeks in hospital administration proved revelatory. Access to the credentialing committee opened doors he'd never known existed. Each file told a story of deception, with Dr. Miller's fingerprints all over them. Look at this. Dale pointed to his screen during their evening strategy session. Miller falsified compatibility reports for 3 other transplants last year alone. Bradley Douglas, joining them via video call, added his findings. Jeff's been busy too. Found his trail in Nevada, Oregon, and Texas. Different names, same MO. He hooks up with medical staff, creates fake patient histories, then disappears with the money. The nurse in Arizona? Roger asked. Maria Suarez. Disappeared 3 days after Jeff, then going by Michael Carter. Cleaned out their joint account. Local PD wants to talk to him, but they can't prove anything yet. Roger made notes in his leather-bound notebook. Send everything to Regina. She'll know how to use it. Nurse Patty Watson knocked on his office door the next morning, her face troubled. Mr. Everett? I need to show you something. She spread several medication logs across his desk. I was reviewing the nephrology dispensary records. There are discrepancies. Controlled substances signed out to patients who don't exist. How long has this been happening? At least 6 months. The amounts are small, but consistent. And the authorization. She hesitated. It's my wife's signature, isn't it? Patty nodded. Along with Dr. Miller's. I defended them, Mr. Everett. I thought I knew them. We all wear masks, Nurse Watson. Some are just better crafted than others. The evidence mounted day by day. Roger fed selected pieces to Regina Downey, who used them to tighten the regulatory noose around Miller's neck. The doctor's confident demeanor cracked under the pressure. These reviews are excessive, Miller complained during a department meeting. We've always maintained high standards. Standards should be verifiable, Regina replied smoothly. Surely you agree, Dr. Miller? Katrina watched these exchanges with growing unease. Roger caught her whispering urgently to Jeff in the hospital chapel, unaware that Dale's hidden camera captured everything. Something's wrong, she hissed. Roger's different. He's asking questions, looking into records. Calm down, Jeff soothed. He's just taking his new role seriously. Besides, Miller assured us the records are clean. Are they? Regina Downey's been through my cases 3 times this week. Roger reviewed the footage with Bradley that evening. She's scared, Bradley observed. Want me to leak the Arizona info to local police? Not yet. Let them unravel a bit more. The pressure began showing results. Miller started making mistakes, missing meetings, snapping at staff, drinking in his office. Katrina's nursing performance suffered. She mixed up medications twice in 1 week. Roger watched it all with calculated patience. Each misstep, each panicked reaction, fed into his larger plan. He played the concerned husband at home, listening to Katrina's complaints about increased oversight while gathering evidence of her deceptions. The transplant program's under review, she told him over dinner. They're questioning everything, even routine procedures. Really? That must be stressful for Dr. Miller. He's doing his best. These accusations are baseless. Accusations? I thought it was just a review. Katrina's fork paused halfway to her mouth. That's what I meant. Of course. Roger sipped his water. How's Jeff handling the scrutiny? I wouldn't know. No? I thought you were managing his case. I stepped back. Professional distance, given our family connection. Roger nodded, watching her lie with practiced ease. Later that night, he added her statements to his growing file of evidence. Bradley's next report arrived encrypted. Jeff's getting nervous. He's been making calls to contacts in Canada. Looks like he's planning an exit. Not this time, Roger replied. This time, he faces what he's done. Nurse Patty Watson proved an unexpected ally. Her initial defense of Katrina turned to disgust as she uncovered more evidence of drug diversion. She used my login twice, Patty reported. Accessed the dispensary after hours. I've documented everything. Regina Downey called an emergency board meeting. Miller's department is under official investigation. We need to contain this quietly. Quietly? Roger raised an eyebrow. That seems contrary to the public interest. We'll go public, but on our terms. The annual charity gala is next month. Perfect timing for a discussion about medical ethics, wouldn't you say? Roger's smile was sharp. I believe I could prepare some relevant remarks. The web tightened day by day. Miller's past cases underwent scrutiny, revealing patterns of deception going back years. Jeff's criminal history emerged piece by piece, each revelation adding weight to the coming confrontation. Katrina played her part perfectly. The concerned wife, the dedicated nurse, the loving cousin. She never suspected that each lie, each secret meeting, each falsified record was documented and added to the arsenal being built against her. You're different, Dale observed one evening. Harder. Different times require different methods, Roger replied, reviewing their latest surveillance photos. They chose their path. Now they'll walk it to the end. The charity gala approached, and with it, the moment of reckoning. Roger prepared his speech with meticulous care, weaving in damning details that only the guilty would recognize. Regina secured the presence of state medical board investigators, disguised as donors. Martin Keith, the hospital's legal counsel, reviewed Roger's evidence and nodded grimly. They won't recover from this, Martin warned. That's the point, Roger replied, straightening his new tie. Some betrayals can't be forgiven. They can only be exposed and punished. The trap was set. All that remained was to spring it at the perfect moment, when all the players were in place, when escape was impossible. Roger Everett, once a man of forgiveness, had become an instrument of justice. The transformation was complete, and mercy was no longer part of his vocabulary. Chapter 6. Sins Exposed. The St. Mary's annual charity gala transformed the hospital's main atrium into a showcase of wealth and influence. Board members mingled with donors, medical staff circulated with practiced charm, and in the center of it all, Roger Everett waited. Your speech is scheduled for 9, Regina Downey murmured as she passed. The medical board investigators are in place. Roger nodded, watching Katrina laugh at something Jeff had said. They played their parts well, the devoted cousins supporting his potential donor through medical challenges. Dr. Miller stood nearby, champagne glass in hand, his forced smile betraying his nerves. Martin Keith approached, legal papers tucked discreetly in his jacket. Everything's prepared. Once you begin, they won't have time to destroy evidence. Their phones? Being monitored. Bradley's team is ready. Roger took the podium at precisely 9 o'clock. The crowd quieted, expecting another bland speech about medical ethics and charitable giving. He adjusted the microphone, his gaze sweeping the room. Ethics in medicine isn't just about following rules, he began. It's about trust. Trust between doctor and patient, between colleagues, between institutions and the communities they serve. Dr. Miller shifted in his seat. Katrina's hand found Jeff's under their table. St. Mary's has always prided itself on maintaining the highest ethical standards, Roger continued, which makes recent discoveries all the more disturbing. The room stilled. Regina Downey nodded to several well-dressed attendees, the medical board investigators, who moved quietly toward the exits. Our transplant program, for instance, has reported remarkable success rates. Rates that, upon investigation, prove statistically impossible. Dr. Miller's glass froze halfway to his lips. Roger pressed on, his voice carrying through the stunned silence. We've uncovered systematic falsification of medical records, manipulation of donor matches, misappropriation of charitable funds, and these violations were perpetrated by those entrusted with our patients' lives. Photographs appeared on the screen behind him, documents, signatures, surveillance images. Miller half rose from his seat, but Regina's hand on his shoulder kept him down. Dr. Herman Miller, Roger announced, your medical license is suspended pending investigation. Hospital security will escort you to clear your office. The doctor's face contorted. You can't. The medical board disagrees. Roger pointed to the investigators now surrounding Miller's table. They're very interested in your creative approach to transplant documentation. Katrina stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. Herman's record is impeccable. Is it? Roger's gaze locked onto his wife. Like your cousin's medical history? Security guards moved through the crowd. Jeff pushed back from the table, looking for an escape route. Jeff Campos, Roger's voice cut through the murmurs. Or should I say Michael Carter? Or James Wilson? The Arizona police have some questions about a missing nurse named Maria Suarez. Jeff bolted for the door but found his path blocked by Bradley Douglas and 2 police officers. Jeffrey Campos, Bradley announced, you're under arrest for multiple counts of fraud across state lines. The room erupted in chaos. Donors demanded answers, board members huddled in urgent discussion, and through it all, Roger maintained his position at the podium, watching his wife's face as her world collapsed. The evidence has been provided to the relevant authorities. He continued over the din. St. Mary's will cooperate fully with all investigations. We owe our patients nothing less than complete transparency. Martin Keith stepped forward with a team of auditors. Dr. Miller, we'll need access to all your files. Any attempt to delete or alter records will result in additional charges. Miller slumped in defeat, but Jeff wasn't finished. He broke away from the officers, shoving through the crowd. Bradley's team moved to intercept him, but Jeff had found a service entrance. He's heading for the parking garage. Dale's voice crackled through Roger's earpiece. West stairwell. Roger didn't miss a beat. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. Security will handle this matter. The chase ended at Jeff's car. Bradley's team had already disabled it, and police cruisers blocked the exits. They took him down as he fumbled with his keys, his fake medical records spilling across the concrete. Back in the atrium, Katrina faced her own reckoning. The board members who had once praised her dedication now turned their backs. Nurses who had trusted her professional judgment whispered about medication discrepancies. Mrs. Everett, Regina Downey announced, please surrender your hospital ID and keys. Your nursing license will be reviewed by the state board. Roger watched his wife crumble, her carefully constructed facade shattering under the weight of exposed truth. She turned to him, finally understanding. You knew, she whispered. All this time. Roger turned away from the podium, addressing the stunned crowd rather than his wife. St. Mary's has always represented healing and hope. Tonight marks our commitment to restoring that trust. Bradley Douglas approached with a thick folder. The financial records you requested, Mr. Everett. Transfers, accounts, fundraiser documentation. Give them to Ms. Downey, Roger commanded. The board should see exactly how their charitable donations were meant to be misused. Constance Lowe stepped forward, her own records in hand. I've traced all donor contributions. The money never reached any medical facilities. It's been sitting in a holding account, waiting for transfer. The evidence mounted as more people came forward. Nurse Patty Watson presented medication logs showing discrepancies. Dale provided technical documentation of altered records. Each revelation drove another nail into the conspirators' coffins. Dr. Miller, still flanked by medical board investigators, attempted one last defense. This is a witch hunt. Roger's personal vendetta because of his marital problem. Interesting choice of words, Herman, Roger cut in. Should we discuss your role in those marital problems? The falsified cousin documentation? The backdated medical records? I was trying to help a patient. You were helping yourself. Your transplant success rates earned you speaking engagements, research grants, professional acclaim, all built on lies. Regina Downey stepped to the podium. The hospital board has seen enough. Dr. Miller, your employment is terminated effective immediately. Security will monitor your departure. As Miller was led away, Katrina made one last attempt to salvage her position. I didn't know about the records. I was just trying to help my cousin. Stop. Roger's voice cut through her protests. The DNA tests prove Jeff isn't your cousin. Just like the medical records prove you knew about his condition before he supposedly contacted you. Just like the security footage shows your meetings in the parking garage. The color drained from her face. Behind her, hospital staff whispered and pointed. Her colleagues' faces showed disgust and betrayal. The state nursing board will receive complete documentation of your ethical violations, Regina announced, including the medication diversions. Jeff's arrest had drawn the attention of multiple law enforcement agencies. Detective Sarah Martinez from Arizona stepped forward, badge displayed. We've been tracking Mr. Campos for months, she announced. His pattern of medical fraud crosses several states. Mrs. Everett, we'll need to question you about your role in this conspiracy. The gala dissolved into a flurry of official activity. Board members huddled with legal counsel. Donors demanded audits of their contributions. Reporters who had come to cover a charity event found themselves witnessing the exposure of a major medical fraud. Through it all, Roger maintained his composure. He had orchestrated this moment perfectly, ensuring each player faced the consequences of their actions. No escape routes, no plausible deniability, no mercy. Mr. Everett, Martin Keith approached as the police led Jeff away. The hospital will need your continued cooperation during the investigation. Of course. Roger straightened his tie. I believe in seeing things through to the end. Katrina stood alone in the center of the atrium. Her world collapsed around her. The pregnancy she had used to halt the fake transplant now marked her as a conspirator in Jeff's scheme. Roger, she tried one last time. We can talk about this. No, he replied, his voice devoid of emotion. We can't. You made your choices. Now face them. The charity gala, intended to celebrate St. Mary's commitment to healing, had instead exposed its deepest wounds. But as Roger watched his wife escorted from the building, her hospital ID surrendered, he felt no satisfaction, only the cold certainty that justice had been served. Dale appeared at his side. It's done, brother. Not quite, Roger replied, watching Miller's office being sealed for investigation. But it's a start. The night ended with 3 arrests, 2 suspensions, and countless reputations in ruins. Roger's transformation from compassionate chaplain to ruthless administrator was complete. He had sacrificed mercy for justice, forgiveness for retribution. Regina Downey found him later in his office, reviewing the aftermath. The board is impressed with your handling of this situation. I simply believe in accountability, he replied, adding another document to his evidence file. And your wife? Katrina made her choices, Roger stated flatly. Now she can live with the consequences. The hallways of St. Mary's would never be the same. The respected transplant program lay in ruins, its director exposed as a fraud. But through the destruction, Roger had achieved his goal. Those who betrayed him had learned that compassion and weakness were not the same thing, and that some sins demanded payment in full. Chapter 7. The Fall. Katrina gripped her hospital ID badge as security escorted her from St. Mary's Medical Center. Behind her, the chaos of the charity gala continued to unfold. Her lover in handcuffs, her mentor under investigation, and her husband watching it all with cold satisfaction. "This way, Mrs. Everett," the guard directed, his tone professional but distant. Just hours ago, he had greeted her with friendly smiles. News traveled fast in hospitals. Regina Downey intercepted them at the exit. "Your personal belongings will be searched before removal. Standard procedure in cases of suspected drug diversion." "You can't do this," Katrina protested. "I have rights." Regina's laugh held no humor. "Like Dr. Miller's right to falsify medical records? Or Mr. Campos's right to defraud donors?" Back in the gala hall, Roger coordinated with law enforcement. Detective Sarah Martinez reviewed the evidence Bradley Douglas had compiled. Multiple aliases, multiple states, Martinez noted. Jeff Campos, Michael Carter, James Wilson. All the same man, all running the same scam. "And your wife helped him." "She did more than help," Roger replied, handing over another file. "Check the dates on these hospital records. She knew his real identity before he ever showed up claiming to be her cousin." Bradley added his own findings. The fundraiser account shows regular small withdrawals. They were siphoning money gradually, planning something bigger after the fake surgery. Nurse Patty Watson arrived with a stack of pharmacy logs. "These are all the medication discrepancies I found. Controlled substances signed out under false patient names, all authorized by Dr. Miller and administered by Katrina." Roger studied the documentation. Each piece fit perfectly into his plan for destruction. "Send copies to the State Nursing Board. They'll want to begin their investigation immediately." In the hospital's security office, Dale Wallace reviewed surveillance footage with the police. "Here's Jeff meeting Miller in the parking garage. 3 weeks ago. They argued about money. You can see Miller demanding something." "Blackmail?" an officer suggested. "More likely a bigger cut of the fundraiser money," Dale replied. Miller's greed made him sloppy. He left digital fingerprints all over these records. The next morning, St. Mary's buzzed with activity. State medical investigators seized computers and files from the nephrology department. Dr. Miller's office was sealed, yellow crime scene tape across the door. Constance Lowe, the financial coordinator, met with Roger in his new office. "I've traced all donor contributions," she reported, spreading spreadsheets across his desk. "They diverted funds through a network of fake patient accounts. Miller signed off on everything." "Make sure the donors know they'll receive full refunds," Roger instructed. "The hospital's insurance will cover it. The board wants to keep this quiet. The board wants to avoid liability. I want justice." "There's a difference." Nurse Audrey Shea knocked on his door, her face pale. "Mr. Everett?" "Katrina's in the lobby. She's demanding to speak with you." Roger straightened his tie. "Perfect. Have security ready, but let her come up." Katrina stormed into his office minutes later, her pregnancy visible beneath her designer blouse. "How dare you?" "After 8 years of merit." 8 years of lies, Roger cut in. "Sit down." "I won't." "Sit down." She sat, her defiance wavering under his steel gaze. "Your nursing license is suspended pending investigation," he stated flatly. "The medical board has questions about drug diversion. The police have questions about fraud. Which would you like to address first?" "You don't understand. Jeff needed help. Jeff needed a mark. Someone with medical access, someone trusting enough to accept his story. You gave him both. I love him. You love what he represents. Excitement. Escape. A way out of your mundane life with a chaplain." Roger's smile held no warmth. "How's that working out?" Tears filled her eyes. "Roger, please. Think about the baby. Your pregnancy was convenient, wasn't it? Stopping the fake transplant, buying time for your escape. But now it ties you to Jeff permanently. DNA evidence has a way of complicating con." Security appeared in the doorway. Roger nodded, and they moved to escort Katrina out. "One more thing," he called after her. Divorce papers will be delivered this afternoon. Don't bother contesting anything. Bradley has documented all your activities, financial, professional, and personal. Later that day, Regina Downey reviewed the growing evidence with Roger and Martin Keith. Miller's career is finished, Regina announced. The medical board found falsified records going back years. He boosted his transplant success rates by manipulating data. Martin nodded grimly. The DA is considering criminal charges. Medicare fraud, insurance fraud, endangering patients with unnecessary procedures. In the Arizona case? Roger asked. Detective Martinez is interviewing Jeff now, Bradley reported, entering the office. He's offering to trade information about Miller's other schemes for a deal. Let him talk, Roger decided. The more he reveals, the more completely they all fall. The day ended with Miller's arrest, broadcast on local news. Reporters swarmed St. Mary's, hungry for details about the scandal. Roger watched from his office as his carefully orchestrated destruction played out. Dale found him there after midnight. You okay, brother? Better than okay, Roger replied. I'm just getting started. Chapter 8. The Reckoning. The divorce proceedings moved swiftly. Roger's evidence left no room for negotiation. Katrina sat across from him in the attorney's office, her face drawn, her pregnancy more pronounced. These terms are unreasonable, her lawyer protested. My client is entitled. Your client committed fraud, Roger's attorney interrupted. She's lucky we're not pushing for criminal charges. Yet, Bradley Douglas had compiled a devastating dossier. Bank records showing suspicious transfers. Text messages between Katrina and Jeff plotting their escape. Surveillance photos documenting their affair. Sign the papers, Roger commanded. Or I'll make sure the nursing board gets the complete file on your drug diversions. Katrina's hand trembled as she signed. You've destroyed everything I worked for. No, you did that yourself. I just exposed it. The hospital underwent its own reckoning. Regina Downey led a comprehensive audit of all departments, using Roger's evidence as a template for investigation. The transplant program needs complete restructuring, she reported to the board. Miller's corruption went deeper than we thought. Success rates inflated, complications hidden, outcomes manipulated for grant money. Roger sat in on these meetings now, his new role as compliance director giving him authority to reshape hospital policies. He showed no mercy in his reforms. Full background checks on all medical staff, he insisted. Regular audits of prescribing patterns. Multi-level review of all transplant cases. Some board members balked at the cost. Roger silenced them with documentation of Miller's crimes. Would you prefer more scandals? More lawsuits? More patients endangered by corrupt doctors? Meanwhile, Jeff's cooperation with authorities revealed new depths of deception. Detective Martinez updated Roger regularly. He's naming names, she reported. Other hospitals, other schemes. Miller wasn't his first corrupt doctor, just his most ambitious. And Maria Suarez? Roger asked, referring to the missing nurse from Arizona. Still no body, but Jeff's story is changing. He's scared. Nurse Audrey Shea and Katie Ward became unexpected anchors during this time. They recognized the cost of Roger's transformation but supported his drive for justice. You're different now, Katie observed during one of their late-night strategy sessions. I'm stronger, Roger corrected. Clarity has a way of burning off weakness. Dale Wallace found his own path forward. His IT skills, honed by investigating Katrina's betrayal, caught the attention of hospital administration. They offered him a position in cybersecurity. They want me to implement new monitoring systems, Dale reported. Make sure no one can manipulate records like Miller did. Take it, Roger advised. The hospital needs people who understand how betrayal works. The state nursing board hearing proved especially satisfying. Roger watched as Nurse Patty Watson presented evidence of Katrina's drug diversions. Multiple instances of controlled substances signed out to non-existent patients, Patty testified. All administered during shifts when Mrs. Everett had access to the dispensary. Katrina's nursing license was permanently revoked. Her pregnancy, once used as a shield, now marked her as an accomplice in Jeff's schemes. Your career in healthcare is over, the board chairman announced. This kind of breach of trust cannot be overlooked. Dr. Miller's medical license met the same fate. His lawyer attempted to blame system failures, administrative pressure, anything but his own greed. My client acted in what he believed were his patient's best interest. Your client falsified medical records for personal gain, Regina countered. He endangered lives for profit. The evidence is irrefutable. Roger's retribution extended beyond professional consequences. He made sure the story reached medical journals, destroying Miller's academic reputation. His research papers were retracted, his speaking engagements canceled, his professional organizations rescinding his memberships. Brilliant strategy, Bradley commented. You're not just ending their careers. You're erasing their legacies. They violated sacred trusts, Roger replied. The punishment fits the crime. Chapter 9. Sacred No More. 1 year after the charity gala that exposed the scandal, St. Mary's Medical Center operated under new rules. Roger's office as Director of Ethics and Compliance had become a model for other hospitals. Regina Downey reviewed the changes with satisfaction. Transplant success rates are down, but they're honest now. Real patients getting real care. Honesty over prosperity, Roger agreed. Some things matter more than statistics. The hospital staff had adjusted to their reformed environment. New safeguards, new protocols, new layers of oversight. Roger's name inspired both respect and fear. You've built quite a legacy, Martin Keith observed. From chaplain to corruption fighter. I built it on their bones, Roger replied. Let that be a lesson to others. Katrina had left the state, her medical career in ruins. Her child, Jeff's child, would grow up with a mother whose name was synonymous with healthcare fraud. Jeff faced multiple federal charges, his plea deal insufficient to avoid prison. The Arizona investigation continued, Maria Suarez's disappearance a dark shadow over his future. Dr. Miller awaited trial, his empire of lies destroyed. Former patients filed lawsuits. Insurance companies demanded repayment. His reputation, once sterling, was irredeemably tarnished. Dale's marriage to nurse Patty Watson marked a rare bright spot. Roger stood as best man, watching his brother find happiness in the aftermath of destruction. You saved me, Dale told him at the reception. Gave me purpose when I was lost. You helped save others, Roger corrected. Your skills exposed their corruption. The hospital chapel remained empty now. Roger never returned to his former role, never offered prayers or comfort. His faith had transformed into something harder, more pragmatic. Do you miss it? Katie Ward asked him once. Being a source of forgiveness? Forgiveness is overrated, he replied. Justice leaves less room for repeated sins. His new office overlooked the hospital grounds. The view reminded him daily of what he'd lost and what he'd gained. Marriage, faith, compassion all sacrificed on the altar of retribution. Regina found him there one evening, reviewing files for another investigation. You've changed this place, she observed. Made it stronger through fire. Fire purifies, Roger agreed. Burns away weakness and corruption. The lessons of his revenge spread through the medical community. Other hospitals sought his guidance in establishing compliance programs. His name became associated with uncompromising ethics enforcement. You're not just punishing the guilty anymore, Audrey Shea noted. You're preventing future betrayals. Roger's response embodied his transformation. Prevention requires examples. They served that purpose well. His network of allies remained strong. Bradley Douglas, Regina Downey, Dale and Patty. Each played their part in maintaining the new order he'd created. The scandal's aftermath reshaped her more than just St. Mary's. Medical boards strengthened oversight. Hospitals reformed procedures. The ripples of Roger's vengeance touched countless lives. Was it worth it? Dale asked him on the anniversary of the gala. Giving up who you were? Roger stood at his office window, watching the hospital's daily routines. I became who I needed to be. Someone had to ensure that sacred trusts remained sacred. His reflection showed a different man than the compassionate chaplain who once offered universal forgiveness. This man understood that some sins required payment in full, that justice without mercy served its own kind of sacred purpose. No more false redemption, he murmured. No more easy forgiveness. Only truth, consequences, and the price of betrayal. The sun set behind St. Mary's Medical Center, and Roger Everett continued his vigil, a guardian against deception, a living reminder that every sin demands its due. Epilogue: a decade of consequences. Roger Everett stood at the podium of the National Healthcare Ethics Conference, his reputation preceding him. 10 years had transformed him from a disgraced chaplain's husband into the country's foremost authority on medical corruption. The St. Mary's case wasn't unique. He addressed the packed auditorium. It exposed vulnerabilities present in all healthcare systems. The question isn't whether corruption exists in your facility. It's whether you're equipped to find it. The audience hung on his words. Hospital administrators, ethics officers, and compliance directors filled their notebooks with his insights. Roger had built more than a career from the ashes of betrayal. He'd created a new framework for institutional accountability. After his presentation, Bradley Douglas waited in the hotel bar. The private investigator's hair had grayed, but his instincts remained sharp. "Got some news you'll want to hear," Bradley said as Roger sat down. "They found Maria Suarez." Roger paused with his water glass halfway to his lips. "Dead? Alive? In Vancouver?" Jeff's plea deal finally cracked that case. She'd helped him with his earlier scams, then threatened to expose him. He paid her to disappear. "Have you told Detective Martinez?" "She's handling the extradition. Both Suarez and Jeff will face additional charges." Roger nodded, satisfaction evident in his expression. "And Jeff's current status?" "Still in federal prison. 7 years down, 13 to go." His appeals were denied last month. Bradley pulled out his tablet. "Want to see his latest prison photo?" "Time hasn't been kind." "No need. The past stays in the past." Bradley's phone buzzed, another case requiring his attention. "Speaking of the past, heard anything about Katrina?" "Dale keeps tabs," Roger replied. "She's in Minnesota now, working retail. The medical board shared her case with surrounding states. She'll never work in healthcare again. And the child, 9 years old, lives with her parents most of the time. Katrina's weekend visits are supervised." The mention of family led them to discussing Dale Wallace's success. Roger's brother had parlayed his experience exposing the St. Mary's scandal into a thriving cybersecurity consultancy. "Dale and Patty just had their second kid," Roger mentioned. "A boy this time. They're naming him James. Still living in the old neighborhood? Bought the house next to the hospital. Patty went back to nursing after their first child started school. She's charge nurse in pediatrics now." Bradley studied his old friend. "You've built quite a life from the wreckage." "The Roger I knew back then died in that charity gala," Roger cut in. Along with misplaced trust and false redemption, they were interrupted by Regina Downey's arrival. The former board member had risen to become CEO of a major hospital network, implementing Roger's compliance protocols across multiple facilities. "Your speech caused quite a stir," she said, joining them. 3 hospital boards have already requested consultations. "They always do after these conferences," Roger replied. "Nothing motivates change like fear of exposure." Regina ordered coffee, her professional demeanor unchanged by the years. "Have you told him about Dr. Miller?" she asked Bradley. "Was waiting for you." Roger's interest sharpened. "What about Miller?" "He's trying to rebuild his practice in Mexico," Regina explained, using a slightly altered name. "One of my contacts spotted him at a private clinic in Guadalajara. Forward the information to Martinez," Roger instructed. "His parole terms prohibit leaving the country." "Already done. But there's more. He's working with someone you know. Nurse Audrey Shea." The revelation hung in the air. Audrey had been instrumental in exposing the original scandal, her documentation helping to bring down Katrina and Jeff's scheme. "She reached out last month," Bradley added. "Wanted to warn us." Said Miller approached her about investing in his clinic. "She's gathering evidence." Roger's expression hardened. History repeating itself. "Set up surveillance. If Miller's starting another fraud scheme, we'll catch it," Regina assured him. "Your methods work." The conversation shifted to the broader impact of the St. Mary's case. Roger's exposure of the transplant program fraud had sparked nationwide reforms. Hospital compliance officers now routinely cited the case in their training materials. St. Mary's itself has completely transformed, Regina reported. The new transplant center is a model of transparency. All cases independently reviewed, all outcomes publicly reported. Martin Keith still their counsel? Roger asked. Retired last year. But his replacement uses the documentation protocols you developed. Your influence remains. Bradley pulled up recent photos on his tablet. The hospital had expanded, adding new wings and departments. But the chapel remained unchanged, a reminder of Roger's former life. Constance Lowe runs their financial oversight now, Regina continued. Remember how she first spotted the irregularities in Jeff's paperwork? She's built an entire department around detecting similar patterns. And Katie Ward? Still risk management director. She lectures about the case at medical schools. Turns your story into lessons about institutional vulnerability. The conference center buzzed with activity around them. Healthcare administrators hurried between sessions, many clutching copies of Roger's latest book on preventing medical fraud. Your publishing career's taking off, Bradley observed. 3 books in 5 years. People want to understand how corruption spreads, Roger replied. How trusted professionals become criminals. How institutions enable betrayal. Regina checked her phone. Speaking of books, have you seen Katrina's blog? She's writing about redemption after mistakes, trying to rebrand herself as a cautionary tale. Let her try. Roger's voice held no emotion. Her story serves my purpose either way. Either as a warning or an example. The years had refined Roger's methods without softening his resolve. His consulting firm, Everett Compliance Solutions, worked with hospitals nationwide to implement protective systems against fraud. The Philadelphia case last month? Bradley pulled up an article. They caught the scheme early because of your protocols. Saved millions in potential losses. More importantly, saved lives, Regina added. Miller's fraud endangered patients. That's the real crime we prevent. Roger's phone buzzed with a message from Dale. A photo showed his brother's new son, tiny fingers wrapped around Patty's hand. The image stirred no sentimentality in Roger. He'd learned to appreciate loyalty without requiring emotional attachment. Dale's boy will grow up in a different medical system, he observed. One with real safeguards, real consequences. Because of you, Regina said. You turned personal betrayal into institutional reform. I turned weakness into strength, Roger corrected. The system was vulnerable because people believed in second chances, in redemption without cost. Bradley signaled for another drink. Speaking of cost, heard anything from your former congregation? The chaplaincy board still tries to contact you occasionally. They want me to speak about forgiveness. Roger's laugh held no humor. About finding peace through acceptance. And your response? Peace is overrated. Justice leaves a more lasting impression. The evening wound down as conference attendees filtered out. Roger's next day would bring more consultations, more hospitals seeking his expertise in preventing betrayal. 10 years, Regina mused. Sometimes I wonder how differently things might have gone if Miller had just followed proper protocols. Or if Jeff had chosen another hospital, Bradley added. They chose their paths, Roger stood, adjusting his suit jacket. My job was ensuring they faced the consequences. The decade had proven the effectiveness of his methods. Medical boards across the country had adopted his compliance standards. Hospital administrators feared the scrutiny he represented. His phone buzzed again. Another desperate hospital board discovering fraud in their ranks. Another opportunity to demonstrate that betrayal carried consequences. Milwaukee this time, he informed his companions. Surgical department billing fraud. Flight leaves in 2 hours. Want backup? Bradley offered. No need. The pattern's always the same. Trust abused, systems bypassed, greed overcoming ethics. Roger gathered his materials. They all think they're special. They all learn otherwise. Regina walked with him to the hotel lobby. You knew this would be your legacy? Back when it all started. I knew trust without verification was weakness, he replied. I knew forgiveness without justice was surrender. The rest followed naturally. Outside, the city hummed with activity. Somewhere in a Minnesota suburb, Katrina stocked retail shelves, her medical career a cautionary tale. In a federal prison, Jeff counted the years until release. In Mexico, Miller thought himself beyond reach, about to learn otherwise. Roger Everett had built an empire on their downfall. His name inspired fear in corrupt administrators, hope in whistleblowers, and respect in regulators. He transformed personal vengeance into institutional reform, private betrayal into public protection. The past decade had proven his core belief. Sacred trusts, once broken, demanded payment in full. His life's work now ensured that payment would be extracted, regardless of rank or reputation. Dale's message about his newborn son remained unopened on Roger's phone. Family, like faith, had been redefined by betrayal's lessons. Trust was earned through actions, loyalty proven through time. Love without accountability was just another weakness waiting to be exploited. Another hospital, another fraud, he murmured, heading for his waiting car. The names change, but the story remains the same. The driver pulled away from the curb as Roger reviewed the Milwaukee case files. 10 years had passed since his transformation from chaplain to corruption hunter. 10 years of exposing fraud, punishing betrayal, and ensuring consequences. His laptop contained the tools of his trade, investigation protocols, compliance checklists, documentation requirements. Each developed from lessons learned during the St. Mary's scandal, each refined through years of hunting similar frauds. The upcoming case would follow familiar patterns. Someone had trusted unwisely. Someone had betrayed that trust. Now someone would pay the price. Roger Everett had long since stopped seeking redemption, for himself or others. He dealt now in consequences, in justice without mercy, in the cold satisfaction of ensuring that every betrayal faced its reckoning. The city lights faded as his car headed toward the airport. Somewhere ahead, another fraud waited to be exposed. Another betrayal demanded its due. Roger smiled, anticipating the familiar pattern of discovery and destruction. A decade had transformed him from victim to avenger, from chaplain to corruption's nemesis. His methods had spread, his influence grown, his reputation becoming both warning and weapon. The past was marked by betrayal, the present dedicated to justice, the future promising more opportunities to ensure that sacred trusts, once violated, extracted their full price. Roger Everett had found his true calling, not in offering forgiveness, but in delivering consequences. Not in healing wounds, but in preventing their infliction. Not in saving souls, but in protecting systems from corruption. The legacy of St. Mary's lived on through him, a testament to the price of betrayal and the power of unforgiving justice. Each new case added to that legacy. Each exposed fraud validated his transformation. The airplane waited to carry him to his next battle against corruption. Roger Everett, once a man of God, now served a different master. The cold certainty that every sin demanded payment, and he would be its collector. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.